The Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Pride Seeds, High Stick NT, and Cruiser Max Vibrance Beans.
Bernard Tobin back on the Soybean School, joined again by Horst Bonner, Ontario soybean specialist here at the ministry. And hey, I want to talk a little bit about soybeans, but we're also going to talk about wheat.
Oh, good night.
Yes.
Oh, good night. All right.
That your favorite crop?
Yes, I love
actually,
wheat. Yep.
The question comes from our good friend Peter Johnson.
It would, yep.
So he put me up to this, but I guess the question is, Peter likes to talk about the fact that, hey, if we can get these soybeans off this ground earlier on, he can get his wheat in early, so he can get these tremendous yields.
Yes.
And all it's going to cost every grower is a couple of bushels, because all they have to, by shortening their soybeans. Go for shorter, get away from these long days. Yeah. All they're going to lose is a couple of bushels, and they're going to get this fantastic wheat crop. Want to get your thoughts on that theory? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think the first thing we have to understand is that growing a shorter season variety of soybeans does yield significantly less, right, compared to a full season or even stretching that maturity in the right year. So that, there's still some misunderstanding out there. Growers say, well, I don't really buy it. My short day bean yields just as much as your longer day bean. Well, I mean, that may be true in a specific scenario, but the performance trials are done every year, and we graph those, and the difference is amazing. Like this last year, we had within a 10-day span in some of the trials as much as a 10 bushel difference, right, in terms of maturity. Now, that's not the usual. Usually, it's in the range of 2 to 3, sometimes 4 bushels, and most of the areas are like this. So, are like that. So that's the first thing. We have to understand that there is this difference, right? So when you think about the things that you or I can do to increase soybean yields, we have a hard time coming up with a real long list of things that give us 2, 3, 4 bushels. For sure, we have some, no question. But in terms of not costing us any money, this is one of the few, maybe the only one, that really gets us to where we want to be, right? 55, 60 bushels. So my simple argument is this. We have 2.5, sometimes we've had over 3 million acres of soybeans in the province. How many acres of wheat do we have? About 1 million, right? Well, my goodness, there's a huge difference there. I would say that we need to concentrate first on those acres that are not intended for wheat, right? Right. So we've got almost 2 million acres there that we really should be maxing out in terms of the growing season with early planting, longer maturing beans, and stretching it. Like when I drive around the countryside and the beans are done in the middle of September, to me that's a sad thing. It breaks my heart. I know that sounds silly, but I think I know that we're losing 5, 6 bushels there. Right? Now, back to your question, what about wheat in this whole big story? So that's your soybean story. What about wheat? I think there is an argument to be made that you fundamentally treat those acres different, and you say, this is intended for wheat. I have to give up a little bit on my soybeans, because there is no way around the problem that you have to get the beans off and you have to plant the wheat, right? There just is, obviously, there's no quick solution to that. So an individual grower knows what he can get away with in terms of the maturity. I would simply make the argument that it all depends on how seriously you take your wheat. Yeah. To be honest with you, some of us don't take wheat as seriously as we should. If you take wheat very seriously, then it's not a bad strategy to hold the soybeans back. But be aware, you're giving up on the soybeans. There's just no way around it.
What about some scenarios? I mean, for example, if you're growing IP beans, and if you shorten up a little bit, not only you get a chance to combine those beans in a longer day, makes it a little easier. You probably don't have the same quality issues. Does it make sense? So if you're looking at those other 2 million acres, maybe the IP producers should be thinking along those lines?
Well, I think that whatever you can do to get that crop off is what you should be thinking about, right? So that's not only maturity, but that's also planting date, right? And it's also weed control issues, because if there's weeds in there, you should be out there with the pre-harvest and be very aggressive. And then, of course, the other...
If you get your weed control done, you're ready to go with your weed,
yes,
right?
well, absolutely. I really think that for a lot of us, a pre-harvest burn down in soybeans is absolutely the right thing to do. If there's any weed pressure there, because you're setting yourself up for a nice wheat plant. And then other than that, there really isn't that much you can do except pushing like crazy at harvest to get it all done, which we all do already anyway. Right. But so I think at the end of the day, you can kind of talk yourself in and out of all kinds of different scenarios. You have to decide how important is that weed to you. And I would make the argument from an agronomic long-term yield perspective, very important to keep wheat in the rotation. Maybe more important than any cover crop you can come up with.
Good point. And you can manage harvest for both, right? For your soybeans and your wheat. Hey, great insights today. Thank you so much. I'm sure Peter Johnson will hunt you down after watching this, and this conversation will continue.
I'm sure. Very good. Take care.
Thanks.